Welcome to Nature's CSI, Creepy Stories of Invasion. I'm Dr. Tom Stolgren. Episode 4 is Spinning Creepy Food Webs. Have you ever wondered why common species become rare? Why we don't see as many grizzly bears, gray wolves, and bighorn sheep in the western United States? Why the yellow-legged frogs and the boreal toads are disappearing? Why it's difficult to find a native trout species, but so easy to find trout species from the eastern United States? Well, that's because we've introduced many alien species. And to protect our domestic sheep and cattle, well, we killed a lot of grizzly bears and gray wolves. We moved bullfrogs around, and we moved fish from the eastern United States to the western United States. And in doing so, we caused the decline of many frogs and many native fishes. We have altered food webs. A food web summarizes the feeding relations in a community. The feeding activities of a few keystone species may control the structure of an entire community. This is a simple food web down below, where there's grass eaten by the cow, which is later eaten by a geek in a bad tie eating a hamburger. The third thing about food webs to remember is that invasive predators can collapse and simplify the structure of a food web. It can turn common things into rare things. What do you suppose would happen if we introduced a saber-toothed tiger into this system? Well, I'll tell you, pretty soon, the geek in the bad tie eating a hamburger would soon be gone, and so would the cow. And you'd have a much more simplified food web structure. And that's exactly what we've done throughout the world. Take a look at Lake Victoria in Africa. Beautiful lake, used to have 400 to 500 cichlid species, beautiful tropical fish. But in 1954, we introduced the Nile Perch, tilapia. We all like tilapia. But after a little while, what happened? Well, the tilapia ate a lot. And now, 250 to 300 cichlid species are extinct or very rare. What we've done is introduce a saber-toothed tiger into Lake Victoria. And what happened in Sequoia National Park? Well, we had yellow-legged frogs swimming around. Their tadpoles were free to roam. They ate little insects. But when we introduced fish from the eastern United States into those lakes, they ate the same insects that the frogs did, and they also ate the tadpoles. And pretty soon, the yellow-legged frogs were in very short supply. We made another mistake in Yellowstone National Park, where a lake trout from Michigan was introduced around 1975. And what happened to the native cutthroat trout that were in the lake? Well, they were food, so they started decreasing drastically. And the lake trout live very low in the lake, whereas the native cutthroat trout live high up in the lake and into the streams. And that's where the bald eagle could feed on them, and so could grizzly bears. With the cutthroat trout gone, these species cannot get down lower in the lake to get the lake trout. In Patagonia, Argentina, we introduced elk for hunting reasons, and then wasps. But they ate a beautiful acacia tree and a keystone species of mistletoe. And when the acacia trees and mistletoe started disappearing, so did the seed dispersers and a beautiful pollinating hummingbird. So by introducing one species to hunt, the elk, we had a negative effect on several native species in the ecosystem. I've warned you about Burmese pythons. They were introduced to Everglades somewhere prior to the year 2000. And their sightings have gone up tremendously. More and more snakes seen each year, and larger snakes each year. Now let's look at this from a food web perspective. What were these big fellas eating? Well, rabbits are down 100% in road surveys. Raccoons are down 99%. Possums are down 99%. And bobcats are down 88%. They're big eaters. Our next story is about Guam. And from an earlier episode, you saw it's a beautiful island in the South Pacific filled with birds. In pre-1950, there were 25 bird species, including 18 native bird species, with booming populations. They had survived hunting, World War II, DDT, and forest clearing. But what they couldn't survive was the introduction of the brown treesnake around 1950, and 12 native bird species have been extirpated. 8 others declined more than 90%, and 2 others were severely reduced. I know what you're thinking. That brown treesnake is the saber-toothed tiger of Guam. You can catch one at a time. I mean, that's not too tough of a job, but catching hundreds at a time is very, very difficult and expensive. What happened to the food chain? Well, the birds used to distribute the fruit of the trees around for forestry regeneration, but they're no longer in the trees because the snakes ate them. When the snakes were done eating the birds, they went after invasive geckos and rats next. When the birds and the geckos and the rats were gone, spider densities became 40 times higher than they found on other islands. Now that's an effect on the food chain. Testing various traps and baits to get those snakes out of there was very important for researchers. They've even added a snake sniffing dog, but finding all those snakes is really tough. In one small portion of the island, they decided to drop mice laced with Tylenol. It's harmful only to the snakes. The mice are on the ribbons get stuck in the trees, the snakes eat the mice, and the snake populations decline. That's a good thing. And the test has worked out pretty well because they've been able to reestablish the Guam rail, one of those species that have been extirpated. The hope is that if snake populations decline even more, we'll be able to bring back the Mariana's fruit dove and some of the other species. Let's hope. It's worth a try. So my role in life is to help save native species. Let's give them a place to roam. Let's give them a time to survive for future generations, for all of us to enjoy. To do that, we're going to have to control alien invasive species from other countries and ecosystems. But we have to try. Thanks for joining us on Nature CSI, Creepy Stories of Invasion. If you have an idea for another episode, shoot me an email. Check out our websites below. And in the meantime, get out there and save the world. Thanks.